Welcome to Cattle Connect, your insight into Alabama's beef cattle industry. I'm your host, Josie Jones, and this is Cattle Connect, brought to you by the Alabama Cattlemen's Association. Hello, Cattlemen. We are excited to be with you on this warm day and super excited because we're joined in studio today by a special guest. We have our Alabama Beef Checkoff Program Chairman, Miss Brenda Glover. So thank you for joining us today, Miss Brenda.
Well, I'm glad to be here with you, Josie, and hopefully we can enlighten folks a little bit about the Alabama Beef Checkoff.
Absolutely. This is a busy time of year for checkoff programming between all of the youth events we have going on and then summer grilling season as well. So we're excited to talk more about it and teach producers a little bit more about what goes into this checkoff programming. But before we get into that, they're going to want to hear a little bit about you and your background and why you're here today. So tell us a little bit about your family and your agriculture background pre the Cattlemen's Association and your position as the Checkoff Council Chairman.
I actually grew up on a Jersey dairy in Tennessee and worked for Jersey Marketing Service in Columbus, Ohio before I met my husband, Keith. When I met him, we had a Jersey dairy of 250 cows and beef cattle. So we sold our dairy in 1996, and after that I went to work for the Alabama Cooperative Extension Service, where I served as an Animal Science and Forages Regional Extension Agent for 18 years. So that's how I got part of my background of working with the Beef Checkoff, working through Extension, and I served on some of the committees for the Beef Checkoff.
Awesome. So you have a lot of past experience with the Checkoff program and have had a strong history in all things cattle, whether that's beef or dairy. So you have a pretty unique background in our crew.
Yes. So I've always enjoyed being able to help other producers and working with cattlemen across the state.
Well, we really appreciate having you here. Now, you mentioned your husband, Mr. Keith, and he is our Alabama Cattlemen's Association President-Elect this year. So y'all are quite involved in not only the checkoff side of things, but the association side. And we really appreciate all the time and energy that you commit to not only the program, but as you mentioned, helping other producers to make sure that we're really representing those people adequately across the state of Alabama. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
So before we jump into all things Alabama Beef Checkoff Council and the details that go into that, specifically your story and being involved with that, I wanted to give our listeners a little bit of backstory on the council, just in case they maybe haven't heard the story before. So our Beef Checkoff Council serves as a division of the association, and they work to approve the activities done through checkoff funding and programming. So that's everything marketing plans, activities, and budgets related to the Alabama Beef Checkoff Program. Our council is a 15-person council, and people that sit on that board serve one-year terms, but they can serve up to 3 years consecutively, beginning January 1st of every year. So it varies a little bit year to year, but we have some familiar faces that stay on and get to benefit from being on that for 3 years. They meet quarterly, and that depends, again, a little bit year by year, but we try and do something at the end of every year to plan for marketing for the following year, and then we do stuff in the spring, midsummer to check in on summer grilling, and then in the fall as we prepare to go into October beef month. So there's always something going on, and there's always a lot of busy things to discuss and talk about. But I was going to have you help me go over a little bit about the people that fill in on that council. So I know we always have an ACA officer and the treasurer, and we have some cattle producers come on board, and you serve as one of those as well. But can you talk a little bit about some of the industry partners that we have come alongside us on that board?
We also have, we've had a representative from the grocery industry. We've also had people come in from the nutrition side, where they work with the schools and with doctors' offices. Just lots. We like to have industry people on there to help us figure out what kind of programs we need to help with, not only for our cattle producers, but just industry-wide.
Bringing in people from outside of our association and even outside of our industry can help us narrow down what programming we need to support and what we can provide for some of those other industries, whether it's the culinary aspect you talked about or nutrition. And then we also work with some other organizations to make sure that we're adequately representing all parts of the beef industry. So We have the Alabama Livestock Marketing Association president that sits on our council, the Alabama Cattlewomen's Association president that sits on our council, and then we typically have a representative from the Alabama Farmers Federation and the Department of Agriculture or the Commissioner of Ag's office. So we have a pretty broad group, and it changes a little bit every year, but it's always exciting to see who we can bring in for those different positions.
Your membership matters. Join the ACA today and enjoy exclusive member benefits, including a subscription to the Alabama Cattleman magazine. Learn more today at alabamabeef.org/join.
We've covered a little bit about the council now and kind of what that looks like. If you have additional questions as to our Beef Checkoff Council or anything about the Beef Checkoff Program, you can go to alabamabeef.org and click on the tab labeled Beef Checkoff, and we have all of the details there and the marketing plan and things like that that you can look at. As always, if you have additional questions outside of that, please feel free to contact our office. We're happy to help how we can. Now that we've given a little bit of an overview of the program, can you talk a little bit from the perspective of a cattle producer as to why it's important to have this council and even the task force involved in the decision making of what is done with these checkoff dollars outside of just our staff in the office?
I think it's very important for the council to be involved because they bring new ideas into how we can promote beef statewide, not only to cattle producers, but our regular consumers that are going to be buying our product at the grocery store. If we don't have our consumers educated, then they're not going to buy our product. And
Absolutely.
We want to do as much education for them as we do for our own cattle producers.
I completely agree. It's building a lot of stability into the beef industry and our future for this industry. So it's something that's super important to take into consideration. I can say as a staff member, having the input of our producers and our industry partners has been crucial to coming into this role and having people that I know I can go to when I need feedback on different programs or suggestions of how I can adapt something to kind of fit the different communities across the state of Alabama, because it does vary a lot. And so without these people, we really wouldn't have as strong of programs as we do. And it's always nice to bring in, like you said, that additional set of eyes to kind of look over these different things and provide that feedback. So we really appreciate that. It helps us at the end of the day to provide the events and the advertising and the programming that our producers want to see, because this program is funded through producer dollars. So it's super important to us to keep it that way. I recognize that a lot of what we talk about on this podcast is from a staff perspective because we're the ones that put out the podcast and the information, but we really do value the opinions of our producers, and that's something that really comes into play in checkoff programming. So as a producer and as someone who has become really involved in this program, can you talk a little bit about how it's producer driven and how people can be more involved with it if they choose to be?
It's producer driven in the fact that every animal that is sold, $2 comes out, and $1 of that goes to the state, and $1 of it goes to the federal or to the National Cattlemen's Association. And those dollars can be spent in different ways, but every producer is involved whether they want to be or not. So when, like I said, when they sell cattle, they're giving dollars to the checkoff program. And we want every producer to feel like they have a say. And that's why every 5 years we have a referendum to vote on whether or not producers want to continue with the Beef Checkoff Program. We have one of the oldest programs in the nation. We've had a beef checkoff since 1962. So we are one of the oldest states with a beef checkoff program. We want producers to feel like they have a say. So come and vote at the referendum. We hope everybody's going to vote yes to continue it. But if you want to have a say, show up at that referendum to vote, either to let your opinion be known. And then let our staff people know that you want to be involved, that you would like to serve on a committee or be a part of the task force. We want like I said, every producer to have that opportunity if they want to be involved. And these programs are very vital to our state. Not only do we help the cattle producers, but we do education for our young children. We want them to learn about the beef industry and become more and more involved, and hope that they'll either stay on their family farm or, if they're not in the cattle industry, become part of the cattle industry.
Absolutely. Those are all really important reasons for us to have a checkoff program. And I can say that from the staff perspective, but we really do want our producers' opinions. So please always feel free to come to us and fill us in on that, whether you want to serve on that task force that we mentioned, which is about 60 to 70 producers and community partners that come together and discuss what they want to see in checkoff programming, or on this 15-person council that we discuss that meets quarterly to decide where those dollars are going to go, what that marketing plan looks like, and make adjustments throughout the year. You've urged producers to come forward and serve in that role, but let's talk a little bit about how you got there. I know you have a long history with the Checkoff program, but what made you decide to come forward and fill a spot on the council and kind of go a little bit more above and beyond to make sure that you're serving your role and saying what you have to say in terms of Beef Checkoff programming?
I started out being a member of the task force when I worked for Extension, and after I retired from the Extension service, I've always felt encouraged to be a leader in whatever organization that I was involved with. And to me, the beef industry is, like I said, it's a vital part of our family operation, and that's how we make our living, is through the beef industry. So I want to do as much as I possibly can to make it better, not only for our family, but for all cattle producers.
We appreciate you coming forward to do that. I would like to know, from your perspective, what would you say to any producers that are listening to this and maybe hesitant to get involved, not because they aren't willing to, but maybe they're a little scared about the process or not sure how they can fit in?
Start at your county level. We need people on the county level to start there and then work their way up to the state organization. We've got to be a grassroots organization, and we got to start from the bottom up. So I encourage everybody to be a member of your county Cattlemen's Association and to be active there. And then come to our state annual meeting that we have that travels throughout the state. We normally have a meeting once a year, and we rotate between North Alabama, Central Alabama, and South Alabama. So I encourage you to come to one of our meetings. It's a great way to not only meet producers, but to learn more. We have all kinds of educational programs at those meetings, and it's just a great way to be involved.
Absolutely. Regardless of the time commitment that you're willing to do or maybe your ability level, there's a spot for everybody to be involved in these decisions. Even if it's just a phone call to one of us in the office to say, hey, I had this idea of how we can better serve our local communities. So I appreciate you mentioning that and taking the time to talk with them about that.
Don't rely on podcasts alone to stay connected to Alabama's beef industry. Follow us at AL Cattleman on Facebook and Instagram to get daily news and updates from the Alabama Cattlemen's Association.
I've truly come to appreciate all of the work that our Checkoff Council does in those quarterly meetings. It can seem far apart, but they get a lot of work done. So throughout the year, they oversee all of the programs that we do in both the state and national funding levels. They oversee all of my programming and then Reed McGuire's as well, and make sure that we're hitting the needs that we need to across the state of Alabama, and to make sure that we're being as efficient as we can with our resources. And as a staffer, I've realized that they're our greatest supporters. So it's to where we can go to them and say, hey, I have this idea, but I'm not entirely sure how to implement it. What do y'all think? Or I'm not really sure what's happening on the county level. Can you help kind of fill out what this looks like and if this is a program that's needed or already run? And so we truly appreciate all of the time that y'all put into giving us feedback and helping us problem solve, and even just supporting the work that's done here in the office on both the county level and the state level. So thank you very much. Your work is truly invaluable. I have one more question for you before we wrap up for today. I know we're getting close on time. After being so involved on the Checkoff Council, the task force, and with all of our different programming, what is one program funded by the Beef Checkoff that surprised you, and why?
My favorite programs is the YCLP class, which is the Young Cattlemen's Leadership Program. And I'm not going to say that it really surprised me, but I think it's one of our best programs that we fund. Young cattlemen up to the age of 40, they can apply from your county, and we select a class of 20 each year. And out of those young people that go through our leadership program, many of them have gone on to become presidents of their county Cattlemen's Association, and then also have served on committees for the state association. So I just think it's a wonderful program for those 20 people that are selected They network together, they become close friends, and not only do they remain friends during the class during that year, but they're relationships that are built for the rest of their lives. So I just think it's a really great program, and I encourage every young person to apply.
That's definitely one of the favorites. Reed works super hard every year to make sure he's providing that group the best opportunities that he can. And so it's always neat to hear the stories of the relationships that come out of that program and the opportunities that they have after that. So I agree with you. It's definitely one of our most unique programs. Well, y'all know what that sound means. It's about time to head out. But before we go, do you want to help me share 3 fast facts with our listeners that they can take with them about the Beef Checkoff program?
Great.
All right. So fact number 1, checkoff funding cannot be used for lobbying or governmental affairs. So it's very heavily regulated, and it's strictly for opportunities like promotion, research, consumer information, industry information, and communications. This is one of those checks and balances, like several others that we've mentioned in this episode, to make sure that we're using producer funding towards programs that producers want to see.
As I said earlier in our podcast, Alabama has one of the oldest state checkoff programs in the nation, being acted into law in 1962, and compared to the national program being added in the 1985 Farm Bill. So we were even established before the national beef checkoff. So I think we're leaders in the industry.
That's one of my favorite Alabama beef industry facts. And our final fact, we referred to this a little bit ago, but the producer referendum that we hold every 5 years was held most recently in 2023, and it passed with more than 95% approval from producers. So this is a program that still continues to run strong today, and we hope for many years and decades in the future, and for our kids and grandkids to be able to benefit from it as well. There you have it, folks. That's the most timely fun facts as it relates to the Alabama Beef Checkoff Program. If you have any questions of anything we've talked about today, please feel free to contact us at the main office. We are more than happy to answer those. You can either talk to Aaron or myself or Reed McGuire, and we'll be happy to give you more information and get you plugged in, whether that's on the local level or on the state level. Until next week, we appreciate you tuning in and hope to see you back for another great episode of Cattle Connect. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Cattle Connect, brought to you by the Alabama Cattlemen's Association. Be sure to subscribe to get notified when our next episode goes live. And until next time, remember, beef, it's what's for dinner.